Here's where we are in the governance series. We completed phase 1, seeing the system, letters 1 to 12. We are in phase 2, designing the system, letters 13 to 30. We completed stage 1, entering design, letters 13A and 13B. We completed stage 2, stabilizing the core, letters 14 to 17. We completed stage 3, seeing clearly, letters 18 to 20. We are in stage 4, from activity to coherence, letters 21 to 23. We just completed letter 22A, when the incentives work against the strategy. We are in letter 22B, when everything is a priority. In letter 10, an organization used artificial intelligence to improve decision-making. The original objective was discovery, to learn, to identify patterns, to better understand the environment in which it operated. The models were built to help people see what was otherwise difficult to see. A bias set in. The objective gradually shifted from discovery toward confirmation. The question was no longer, what is the data showing us? The question became, can the data support what we already believe? No policy announced the change. No governance committee approved it. No executive stood before the organization and declared a new direction. Yet, the signal changed. And when the signal changed, the structure responded. Some teams continued pursuing discovery. Others adjusted to the new expectations. The organization remained active. People remained engaged. Work continued. Yet two structural patterns had already begun forming. Leadership signaled inconsistency and cultural fragmentation. One created the conditions. The other became the result. This letter does not introduce those patterns. Letter 10 already did that, and you may have recognized them in your own organization. The purpose of this letter is to explore and design the governance structures that make these structural patterns easier to recognize, easier to address, and less likely to become embedded within the organization, allowing leaders to identify them earlier and respond with greater intention. The structural pattern, leadership signal inconsistency, occurs when different authority structures communicate different priorities regarding the same initiative. People are not left without direction. They are left with multiple directions. The design response is consistent authority signal. Its purpose is not to create agreement. It is to create coherence. Here's what applying it requires. Let us go through the 3 questions letter 21 introduced to convert a diagnosis into a design resolution. Question 1. How is the question asked and when? The governing question is, can every executive involved in the initiative describe success using the same language, the same priorities, and the same desired outcome? The question is asked before the initiative is approved, before resources are assigned, before governance authority is delegated, before communication is released to the organization. Not afterward, before. The purpose is not to detect inconsistency. The purpose is to prevent inconsistency from entering the structure. If the executive responsible for the initiative cannot articulate the same definition of success before launch, the organization will not execute consistently after launch. The inconsistency will already exist. The signal will already be fragmented. The pattern will already be forming. Question 2. Who holds the accountability for answering it? 3 authorities are present before the initiative proceeds. The executive accountable for the strategic outcome, the executive accountable for operational execution, and the executive accountable for governance oversight of the initiative. Each independently answers the governing question. If those answers differ, the initiative is not ready to move forward. Not because disagreement is prohibited, but because the organization cannot execute a strategy that has not yet achieved structural coherence. The objective is not consensus. The objective is clarity. Question 3. What does the governance structure look like when this has been resolved? Consistent authority signal is visible in the governance record when 3 things can be demonstrated. A document definition of success exists before initiative approval. The strategic owner, operational owner, and governance owner have explicitly reviewed and approved that definition, and a recurring governance review exists whose purpose is not measuring activity, but detecting signal divergence before conflicting priorities begin influencing behavior. When those three things exist, the organization identifies conflicting signals while they are still inexpensive to correct, before departments begin aligning themselves to different interpretations of success. Picture the next major initiative launching under this design. Every executive in the room already agrees on what success looks like before the announcement goes out. And the people receiving that announcement hear one signal, not several competing ones. Once different groups begin responding to different signals, cultural fragmentation follows naturally. Different assumptions emerge, different interpretations emerge, different behaviors emerge. Eventually, different cultures emerge. The organization appears unified from the outside, yet internally, it begins operating according to multiple definitions of what matters. The design response is coherent behavioral design. Its purpose is not conformity. It is ensuring that the behaviors required for strategic success are intentionally reinforced throughout the organization. Let us apply the three questions to convert the diagnosis into a design resolution. Question 1. How is the question asked and when? The governing question is, what behaviors consistently support this initiative achieving the outcome leadership intends to produce? The question is asked during initiative design, not after behavior problems appear, not after fragmentation becomes visible, not after departments begin operating differently. The organization identifies the behaviors that success depends on before the structure begins producing alternative behaviors on its own. Every initiative teaches behavior. The only question is whether that behavior was intentionally designed. Question 2. Who holds the accountability for answering it? Three roles participate: the executive accountable for the strategic outcome, the operational executive responsible for implementation, and the person responsible for the environment in which those behaviors will be reinforced. Not human resources alone, not training functions alone, but the people whose decisions, incentives, recognition systems, and operating practices will ultimately determine whether those behaviors survive. Without all three present, the organization may define desired behaviors. It will not design the structure that sustains them. Question 3. What does the governance structure look like when this has been resolved? Coherent behavioral design is visible in the governance record when three things can be demonstrated. The behaviors that support the initiative have been explicitly documented before implementation begins. Named owners exist for reinforcing those behaviors throughout the life cycle of the initiative, and behavior review is part of the regular governance cycle rather than something discussed only after performance begins deteriorating. When those three things exist, the organization no longer waits for fragmentation to become visible. Envision the opportunity this creates a year into the design. New hires absorb the right behaviors from the structure itself without needing a founder or a culture check to transmit them person by person. The structure teaches what used to depend on a single personality being in the room. Leadership signal inconsistency and cultural fragmentation rarely appear independently. One often creates the conditions for the other. Conflicting signals produce different interpretations. Different interpretations produce different behaviors. Different behaviors produce fragmented cultures. The organization begins moving in multiple directions while believing it is moving in one. Consistent authority signal prevents the fragmentation of direction. Coherent behavioral design prevents the fragmentation of behavior. Together, they resolve two more of the 7 stage 4 structural patterns, bringing the total to 5 resolved across letters 21 and 22. One pattern remains: personality-based decision-making. It is often mistaken for leadership. It is often accepted as normal, and it is one of the most common reasons organizations become dependent on individuals rather than structure. Letter 23 resolves it and closes stage 4 by naming what happens when none of the 6 patterns has been resolved. Personality fills the vacuum that structure was meant to hold. Thank you.